You're listening to West 4th and Goal, presented by Old Carolina Barbecue Company, a podcast for high school sports fans in North Central Ohio. I'm your host, Kurt Conrad, and I'm joined by co-host Effie James and producer Noah Jones. As always, we're coming to you from the IdeaWorks podcast studio located on West 4th Street in downtown Mansfield. This podcast is brought to you by Old Carolina Barbecue Company.
Old Carolina Barbecue is authentic barbecue, Kurt. It's inspired by the Great Carolinas. So head on over for your Sunday meal and have all-you-can-eat barbecue at 2035 4th Street in Ontario, Ohio. And you'll be sure to agree that it's the best barbecue in town.
While we're at it, we'd also like to take a moment to thank Two Cousins Pizza, the official pizza of West 4th and Goal. Located at 103 North Main Street in downtown Mansfield, Two Cousins offers a menu that includes subs, salads, stromboli, and just about anything you're looking for. No matter what you're hungry for, give Two Cousins a call at 419-522-2211. That's Two Cousins Pizza, the official pizza of West 4th and Goal. We've got a really special show in store for you guys today, but before we introduce this week's guest, I wanted to take a second to talk about the upcoming Castle Wall ceremony at Arlen Field. If you've kind of been, put in charge of this thing to coordinate it, so
Right.
Tell us what's going on.
The Castle Wall was moved into Arlen Field, I believe about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It is a monument in honor of Doug Castle, who was a administrator and principal for a long time in Mansfield City Schools, and just a real statesman and community person. He really cared for kids and was a tremendous mentor to myself and many other young people. He was a principal at Simpson Middle School before it closed down. But they put the wall up to honor him, and they put people in as honorees for a couple years, and then it kind of went silent for a little while. And I've been asked to reestablish the Castle Wall honors, and I've done so proudly, and this year we've got 5 honorees going in for the reinstatement of those honors.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to it.
Are we giving those names away yet, or is it?
We are. I'm actually going to give them away right now, if you don't mind.
No.
The 5 honorees. Now, these honorees are people who, they capture the spirit of Doug Castle, who was a guy who was real giving. He cared for kids. He was dedicated to the Mansfield City Schools kids, sports programs, and all of that. So these people are people who do their work behind the scenes.
Right.
And we wanted to honor some of those people. First person is James Shorty Gordon, who's like an equipment manager extraordinaire. He does it all does a lot of the dirty work for the football program, and has for many years, before I was a player. Shorty has been around. Zach Massa is one of the honorees. He's a guy who began taking official stats for Tiger basketball, girls and boys, back in the 97 season, I believe. And Zach has been, a tremendous liaison between Tiger athletics and the local business world. He has really done a lot.
And he's an awful good photographer who helps us out here whenever he can.
He does it all, man. He really cares a lot about Tiger athletics. Third person is Milton Witten III, also known as Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man passed away August 24th. And he was so supportive. He was at he was at every basketball game, almost every football game. He came to all the track meets, regular season tournaments. He was a youth basketball coach or a youth coach in many sports for a long time. A guy who came to the games dressed to the nines. He was known by all Tiger fans, and just his commitment and his dedication to the sports. To the kids. He didn't get, paid for it. Nobody gave him anything. He just wanted to be around Tiger sports, and was for a very long time. So Milton Witten III. Next is Khalil Ali. Khalil was a former track coach at senior high, but really his real gift is mentorship. He's got a lot of kids that, he just kind of took under his wing, myself included. But he started back in the mid-'80s with, actually that 80s group that we done the basketball documentary on, Bubba Toddy, Ahmad Kent, Tyrone Buck. He really started mentoring around that time and has been ever since. Hugh Douglas is a huge mentee of his, and so much so to where people start calling him, his nickname was Daddy to everybody. So he is a tremendous person in Tiger athletics. And then finally, Jack Soliday, who started his career many moons ago as a middle school basketball coach at Appleseed for the Appleseed Pioneers.
Right.
And Coach Soliday went on to coach, middle school sports, high school football, basketball. But he's most known for his 23 now seasons as the voice of the Tigers and the official PA announcer at Arlen Field and at Pete Henry Gym. So those are the 5 honorees going in on homecoming night, which is October the 11th, next Friday at the home game against Ashland, and we're super excited about reestablishing these honors.
Right. And the Castle Wall, Doug has passed away, about a year ago now, I guess it was, but it was for Doug Castle, who was a administrator and stuff, and it's really nice to see that getting restarted here. Yeah,
his daughter Beth is really involved. She started a what they were calling the Castle Legacy Project, which is just a bunch of programs and initiatives done in Mr. Castle's honor, and she's going to talk about that a little bit during the ceremony. So, it's a lot to it, and deservedly so. Mr. Castle was a great man, and he deserves to be honored, and we're just glad to be a part of it.
Is Zach going to be able to be there? I know he's still recovering from some surgery.
Yeah, he's going to be there. At least he says he is. He's his wife may may not like that, but we're going to try to get him there if we can. Hopefully he's healthy enough.
Zach, if you're listening, get well soon. We need you during basketball.
Right, absolutely.
We've had Ohio's Mr. Football in the studio. We've had several D1 guys, but this is the first time we've had an honest to goodness hero.
Absolutely. We're
joined by Clear Fork's Zac Clark, and for those of you who might have been hiding under a rock or in a cave for the last couple of weeks, Zach made national headlines recently for something he did. I don't want to steal his thunder, so without further ado, here is Zac Clark. Zach, thanks for coming down and joining us.
Hey, anytime. It's great being here and great being able to talk to you guys.
Well, just tell us your story. Tell us what happened last week.
All right, so that Saturday, I was outside working with my mom. We're out working on the flower bed, and I look around, see my surroundings, and I noticed my neighbor was under working his car. And a few minutes later, I was working, and all of a sudden I heard a loud bang. And I heard screaming coming from that way, and I looked over, and I saw he was struggling under the car. And immediately I just ran over there without any hesitation. And first thing that came to mind was I got to get the car off of him.
Sure.
And so I just got my arms underneath of it and started lifting as hard as I could. And my mom and his wife were there, and they pulled him out from underneath the car. And then we ended up calling the ambulance to get him to the hospital because he wasn't looking too good.
Right. I mean, that's what do you say about that, F? I mean, a 16-year-old kid, and you happen to go over there and lift a car that's 3,000 plus pounds.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Can you recall like what was going through? I mean, I know you were just reacting, and that's great. Can you recall what was going through your mind at the time, thinking how can I help this guy?
Last year, my dad passed away, and I know what I went through, and that whole time I was thinking about I want this man to be able to see his kids later after this. So I ended up finding the strength. I know God was with us at that time. He was really looking out for us that day.
Absolutely.
About how far away does this guy live? I mean, was it just across the street or just outside of the yard? I mean, how far away were you running to?
It was just right across the street.
How long did you set any records for the 40-yard dash? Getting over?
I'm a big guy, but I don't think I set any records.
So you get to the scene. This guy is underneath his car, and you say the first thing that comes to mind is you just got to move this. I mean, where do you summon the strength to do something like that? I mean, where does that come from?
A lot of it was definitely adrenaline, and like I said, God was there. He gave me that strength to be able to do that.
Right.
But there's no way I can just go out there and just lift up a car like that.
Now, did you get it on the first try, or did you have to
reset? It took me several tries to get it up.
Is that right?
But it ended up coming up just enough for him to be able to get out.
And you said it was like a bit of a deadlift in a couple of interviews, right?
Yeah.
So you're reaching under like the bumper and lifting up with your legs more, or?
It was more towards like where the tire is.
Okay.
Like where you get into the car.
Gotcha.
It was more like that area.
Okay.
So you get it up in the air. How long do you got to hold this thing in the air before you can get the guy out from underneath it? I would imagine that feels like an eternity.
That it felt like an eternity, but it was definitely just a few seconds, enough for my mom and his wife to be able to pull that out from underneath of me.
Right. So your mother, Laura, and the gentleman's wife finally get him out from underneath the car. Do you guys stick around? Do you and your mom stick around until the ambulance gets there, or do you just,
for sure.
say so long and go on home?
We were standing there with him. We made sure he laid down. He was talking to us, making sure where he was at, like what was going through his head. He was in shock. Like he didn't know what was happening.
And the guy's pretty beat up, right? I mean, he ended up having broken ribs and some I don't know, rash on his face from basically a car landing on him. I mean, was he able to communicate with you guys?
He was communicating a little bit. It wasn't like fluently talking. He was a little in shock, and it was hard to hear what he was saying.
I would imagine he's not the only one who's in shock in a situation like that. I don't know how I'd respond to something like that.
Well, that's amazing. Now, Zach, you're a 10th grader, right?
Yeah.
So you haven't reached the peak of your weight training. So I'm wondering, how much did your weight training from football and all of that, did that play a part in how you decided to lift this thing?
It definitely did. I just took it as it was like a deadlift. I just got my arms underneath of it, bent down, just tried pulling it up as hard as I could. I definitely did not have the form of a deadlift, but
So once you get home, who's your first call to? I mean, who do you call and say, "Oh, by the way, I just lifted a car off a guy"?
Definitely my coach. Don't know why it just happened, but he was in shock about it too. He didn't believe me at first, but he goes, "You gotta be messing with me," and I was like, "No, I'm pretty serious right now."
I talked to Brennan South, Clear Forks quarterback, who's
Yeah.
a friend of the program. He's been here a couple of times, and when I talked to him, he said he didn't believe you either. He said you texted him. He's like, "You're not telling me the truth." I mean, is that something you experienced a lot with people?
That day I definitely got that a lot. Like, we don't believe you. And I was like, oh, I did it.
With all due respect, I don't blame him for not. So the story starts to circulate around the community. If you had to guess, how many text messages and phone calls are in your phone on Saturday night when the thing starts to take on a life of its own?
Number, I can't come up with a number. Everybody was texting me. I felt like I needed to turn my phone off for a second. I was just trying to do my Spanish homework, and all of a sudden just everything's popping up on my phone, and I'm like, this is crazy.
This happened on a Saturday after you had a very big win, and so you had to have been at least a little tired from the game blocking Brennan on offense, at least, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Did that have any effect? Was the adrenaline sort of able to take over everything?
At that time, I wasn't thinking about nothing. I wasn't thinking about last night, the next day. I was in that moment. I was just like, it was pure adrenaline took over.
And how sore were you after that?
I was definitely sore for a few days.
Now, Coach Carroll posted something on the football Facebook page, and that's when this thing really kind of got legs and took off. How many interviews did you do last week, would you say? And we talked a little bit about it off air, but I mean, there's still people knocking on your door trying to get a few minutes with you.
I've at least done, that I know of, 10 interviews that I know of.
Who all got a hold of you?
Dave and Jimmy got a hold of me. You guys got a hold of me. Channel 3, Fox News. I actually did one with Fox and Friends. It was on TV. I know Sports Illustrated did a story about it. I know it got to the UK somehow. I don't believe that, but I read the article about it. It was a crazy experience.
Are you surprised that it's taken off the way that it has? I mean, do you feel like I think everyone in the room feels like you did something remarkable,
yeah.
But I mean, do you see it like that, or is it just kind of surprised you that it's this big of a deal?
At first, I was like, I just saved someone's life, but I wasn't thinking like this would blow up how it is right now.
What's the any strange questions from reporters? What's the strangest thing somebody asked you last week?
Oh, man. Well, the most common question I get is, how did I lift up a car?
Right.
I had no idea.
You told me last week that you were a 400-pound deadlifter.
Yeah.
Doing a little research, the car that you lifted up was a Volkswagen Passat. It weighs 3,200 pounds.
Right.
Do you get to tell people now that you were a 3,200-pound deadlifter?
I haven't really took it as that, but we were doing deadlifts, and I told my coach, I was like, I'm just going to put down a car. I mean, I don't want to do it.
When you run over into a situation like that, how are you able to, I don't know, maintain your composure, I guess? I mean, it seems to me that if I were, I'd like to think that I could do that, but if I ran over there and saw a guy basically being crushed by a car, I don't know if I'd be able to hold it all together. I mean, how are you able to kind of maintain your composure there?
Really, I always love helping out people, always want to do the right thing and just help out as much as I can. And really, I just took it as I just need to go over there and help him. Like, whatever I needed to do, I just got over there. I saw that he was under the car, and he was yelling, asking for help, and first thing that came to mind was, you got to get the car off of him.
Right. You touched on it a little earlier. You tragically, you lost your father last year, coming into your freshman year of high school, I think. Just tell us a little bit about your dad and what he meant to you, and do you kind of feel like maybe you had a little help last Saturday?
Oh yeah, for sure. He was a great guy. He went to Mansfield when he was in school. He was a baseball coach for 20-some years. Great guy. No one ever had problems with him. He worked down at the Richland County Sheriff's Department. He always there for me, my brother, and my mom. Always did whatever he could for us, no matter if it was being at our sporting events, buying us new things. He was always there for us. Right.
And I think they renamed the at the Richland County Sheriff's Office, they renamed the visitation center the Rodney Clark Visitation Center. I mean, did you have any idea how many lives that maybe he touched, or I mean, was it kind of a surprise to you after you found out?
When I found out that they were renaming one of the buildings or one of the rooms in the building about him, I was shocked. Yeah, I didn't realize how many lives he touched and how many people respected him down there.
You know, just in doing some research about this, I mean, it's a phenomenon called hysterical strength is what it is. And, it's when, people are able to basically do superhuman things like that. What kind of toll? I mean, at the time, I'm sure, and you talked about a little bit about it, the adrenaline's pumping so much. I mean, were you out of school for a couple of days? I mean, did you have to go to the doctor? I mean, what transpired in the after wake, I guess, of what happened?
That Monday morning, I woke up, I was a little stiff, couldn't really move that much, so I ended up going to the chiropractor and then came right back into school and was at football. And ever since then, I've been at football practice and just doing what needs to be done.
Right. Now, are you surprised how much attention you've garnered here in the last week? I mean,
for sure.
I mean, what's that like? I mean, everyone wants 10 minutes of your time now. All of a sudden, I would imagine it's got to feel kind of different.
It's been a crazy experience. I mean, a lot of people's reached out to me, contacted me. Friends where I used to live has texted me, thanking me and asking what all happened. But I've been very shocked how many people have touched base with me.
Right. And you told us off air here that potentially you're going to get flown out to California and talk to some people. Tell us a little bit about that.
I talked to Kelly Clarkson's producer last night over Skype, and she said she wanted to go talk to Kelly about it and see if she could get me out there to maybe go on her talk show.
And Ellen DeGeneres is showing some interest too. Is that right?
I not that I know of, but people have been telling me that she has, but I'm not too sure about that.
Right. Well, I mean, and we talked a little bit about it last week. You said, at the time you said I was just doing what I would hope anybody would do, basically. I mean, if there's a moral to the story, is that it? I mean, just to, do something if you have the capability to do it?
Oh, yeah. What I want people to take from this is, always try helping people out and just be a good person, just helping them out, whatever they need. If you can do something about it, just try helping them out.
Right. Is there anything you would do differently, I guess? I mean, maybe have a buddy over who could split the load with you?
Yeah, probably.
You and Mom were working on the flower beds. Did you guys eventually get everything planted, or I mean, did you go back to working on the flower beds?
We went back to working on them. We were laying mulch down, but we got half the yard done. Now just after football, I go out there and work on mulching.
Right. I suppose that you guys deserved a break after after that.
Yeah.
Well, we still got a lot to get with Clear Fork's Zac Clark, but we need to take a quick break. You're listening to West 4th and Goal, presented by Old Carolina Barbecue Company.
Old Carolina Barbecue has recently installed a new drive-thru at their 2035 4th Street location in Ontario, Ohio. Go ahead and grab some authentic barbecue inspired by the Great Carolinas and use the drive-thru. Old Carolina Barbecue, where the best barbecue in town is slow smoked with quick service.
Welcome back to West 4th and Goal, presented by Old Carolina Barbecue Company. I'm Kurt Conrad alongside Effie James and Noah Jones, and we're joined by Clear Fork's Zac Clark. Spent the first half of the show talking about what happened there, but I mean, you certainly have a bigger story, I think, to tell. I mean, your older brother Luke was a member of a couple of really good baseball teams.
Oh, yeah.
He was the catcher on teams that qualified for the state state tournament, I should say. They lost in the semifinals both years, but Division III in 2016 and 2017. How you're a catcher just like him? How influential, I guess, has he been on your career?
Oh, he's been working with me. He's been doing some drills with me during baseball season. He's always there to help out, just teaching me new stuff and helping me learn new things.
You were probably pretty young for those baseball teams, those state qualifying teams. What do you remember about those teams, other than Big Brother being the kind of the star of those teams?
I just remember like how good they were and like how like they played with like attitude and or going out there thinking they were going to win, and they just did what they needed to do to win.
I think what I remember most about him is a catch that he made to win a regional championship against Archibald. It was up at Elida. It was last of the seventh inning, I think. He slid into the netting behind the plate and caught the ball. What I really remember about him is he always wore his catcher's gear was the Stars and Stripes. I mean, did he retire that, or did you inherit the red, white, and blue catcher's gear?
He handed it down to me.
Do you wear it?
He handed it down.
Right.
And I told him, I was like, I think it's getting a little old now. So I'm getting the new version of it, and I guess I don't know if he's going to keep it or what he's going to do with it.
Now, did he play football too, or is he more just strictly a baseball guy?
He played his freshman year.
Okay. Now, you're a sophomore starting on one of the most tradition-rich programs in the area. Clear Fork has been to the playoffs, I don't even know how many times, a lot. Is that tradition something you're aware of as a younger guy coming in, or is that something you don't even think too much about?
No, I know we're a playoff caliber team. I just go in there and I was like, I just got to do my part, and hopefully I can push some of our players to get back to the playoffs. Now,
is there pressure that comes with being a 16-year-old starting for one of the best teams in the area? I mean, how do you manage all that?
Definitely one of the younger players on the varsity lineup, but I just go in there thinking that I just got to do my part and be able to stick with them, and always open to suggestions like the older kids on the line. They're always helping me out, teaching me new things to work on and to learn.
Right. Are some of those older guys, have they taken you under their wing and kind of showing you the ropes?
For sure.
Yeah. Is that something that, I mean, down the road that you could see yourself doing too?
Oh, yeah. We're going to have I believe we're going to have some good linemen coming up. I'm ready to be able to work with them when they get up to varsity level.
Right. Now, you guys, last week you go on the road and you suffered a 2014 loss at River Valley. I think a lot of people, some guys in this room included, were a little surprised by that. What happened last week, do you think, and how are you guys able to kind of put that in the rearview mirror?
I think we came in, we were unprepared, I believe. We didn't really play our best game, not at all. But we came in this week. We've been studying a lot, working on little things, watching film from last week to get us better and work on.
Right. I would imagine Dave and Mike Carroll probably they would certainly be pretty good at motivating you guys in situations like that. Has it been pretty intense this week in practice?
It's been very intense this week at practice. But they're just doing what they need to do and to help us get back on the win.
Now, you guys are on the road again this week against it's a huge game, really. I mean, in terms of the Mid-Ohio Athletic Conference championship chase and regional rankings and playoff positioning, all that stuff. You guys are at Galleon. They're undefeated. They hung one on River Valley a few weeks ago, and you can't really do the transitive properties. I mean, they beat River Valley, and you guys lost River. None of that stuff matters. But I mean, what do they do well, and what are you guys going to have to work on to kind of slow them down?
They execute very well. They're a quick team. They got a great quarterback. We've been just working on what to do against them and how to defend their game.
Right. I mean, there was a big game at Arlen Field last week, and I'm sure we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But I mean, that's as big as it gets right now in the Mid-Ohio Athletic Conference.
Yeah, it's a huge game for both teams, and in terms of, like you said, the conference race and things like that. But you know, a lot of times I enjoy looking at as a fan, from a fan's perspective, and looking at the two communities, Galleon and Belleville, just supporting their teams, and that makes for a great environment, and it's huge to be able to play in that those types of games, because those are the ones that you're going to remember. But the game itself is going to be interesting, because you know, Galleon is rolling, but you know the Colts have got something to prove this week, so it'll certainly be an interesting game to watch.
Right, and while it's probably the biggest game in the area, it's certainly not the only one. There's a few games of interest here locally. Mansfield Senior goes to down the hill, goes to Lexington. Tigers are 5-0 off a huge win last week, and you and I were both there, and that was, I mean, there was no shortage of athletes on that field, and Angelo Gross shone the brightest among all those guys.
Right. You know, that was what I like to call it. That was a statement game for Mansfield, and you know, I think I said last week, like that's probably the most talented team they will see this year, but I do not believe that's going to be the toughest game they play, because you know, now when they step into conference play, you know, it's some really good coaches in this area, and they are going to be trying to pinpoint every single weakness that you have, and it's going to get tough. They're going to have to really play some games and be mentally prepared, and they've been doing that well so far. But I know they got some tough games ahead if they want to win this league.
Right. And a game, Zach, I'm sure you guys will be paying attention to down in the Valley. Shelby is at Marion Harding. Shelby coming off a big win the other day against Marion Pleasant. Scored half 100 on them. I mean, they scored 54 on a Pleasant team that is probably not used to giving up that many points. I mean, and Harding upset Pleasant, I think, the week before. So that's a huge game, another huge game in the MOAC.
Yeah, that's big, and you know, Shelby's been playing well, but they've had some moments where they haven't, and you know, that's the thing. You know, they've got really good quarterback play. They've got some athletes, and but you got to play the games, and you know, this game this week for them is another one that's huge in terms of their league and where they want to finish, and this is just a fun part of the year for everybody. Right. You know, and Shelby's got every team right now in the area. There's very few teams that are out of it. You know, most teams are still in the mix for playoff contention and even conference contention. Right. So it's a fun time.
And I mean, you guys probably can't, Zach. You guys can't afford to look down the road, but I mean, there's some big conference games coming up. I think the MOAC combined, the record of your combined the combined record for your opponents the rest of the way out is like 16-9. I guess there's no easy ones for you guys. No breaks on the calendar, huh?
Yeah, we just been looking 1 week at a time. We're preparing for Galleon right now. We're coming in to this is going to be a big game for us. No matter what happens, it's gonna be a big game.
Another game of local interest at the Division 7 level. Lucas, who has been to the playoffs, I think, you know, five years in a row, maybe that might be more. I'm not sure right off the top of my head. But they host a Steubenville Catholic Central team that traditionally is I mean, if you ask anyone about the football in Steubenville, I mean, that's a physical brand of football they play down there. Lucas has outscored its last two opponents 84-0. I mean, that's another one and then you know, that's a game that could go a long way in determining Lucas's, I guess, playoff positioning. I don't think anyone doubts that they're going to make the playoffs, but it's games like that they have to win.
Yeah, that's an interesting, you know, game for them, and in terms of a team like in a community like Steubenville, like you said, they have such tradition in football. But it'll be interesting to see, you know, anytime you play a team that you're not, you know, accustomed to playing very often, and a team that could come in and have varying styles from what you're used to playing, that presents a challenge. So, and I think, I think it's a good thing for Lucas to play a team that they're not familiar with and really challenge themselves to see if they can play different styles of football. And, that's why I like the non-league portion of the season just as much as conference, because teams get challenged when you bring in new schools, new communities into your stadiums and on your schedule. It makes for fun football, and it improves your team and improves their preparation.
Another game I think people are going to be paying attention to, Madison is at Ashland back in the Ohio Cardinal Conference. Madison has obviously had its struggles. Ashland, up until last week, had been struggling, and then they went down to undefeated Mount Vernon and hung 40-some points on those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ashland was very much a product of its schedule. I mean, they played 4 real tough games to open the year, but I was looking at the regional rankings. I think Ashland at 1-4 is now 11th in the region, based on the strength of one win over an undefeated team.
Right, and I said from the beginning when I saw their schedule, I knew it would be tough for them. I did not know they would be 0-4, but I knew they would have a tough schedule in the beginning. But here they are, in first place. So you look at, the conference standings, and you get a chance for a whole nother season. And no matter how bad they felt after the first 4 weeks, they've got new life. And that's what I'm talking about when I say, even with the Tigers, of Mansfield, they played well, non-league, but now it's a whole new season.
Right.
And they are, tied for first, I guess, with Ashland. So everybody has a new chance, and I think Ashland's a team that's going to take advantage of it, as well as some other local teams.
Right, and remarkably, we are already past we'll be past the midway point here in a few days. It certainly goes by very fast. That's going to do it for today. I think we certainly appreciate Zac Clark from Clear Fork from coming down and telling his remarkable story. For co-host Effie James and producer Noah Jones, I'm Kurt Conrad, and thanks for tuning in to West 4th and Goal, presented by Old Carolina Barbecue Company. West 4th and Goal is a part of the Richland Source Podcast Network and is produced and edited by Noah Jones. I'm your host, Kurt Conrad, and on behalf of co-host Effie James, thanks for listening.